Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. This is episode 11 of our 2025 A Look Inside series, and we are going to the Bay Area, San Francisco 49ers, better known as the Santa Clara 49ers. Much quicker to fly into San Jose than it is into San Francisco. Beautiful stadium, beautiful area. Not so beautiful team last year. Some tough coaching decisions, specifically in the backfield, with a guy that should have been on the IR to start the year, but instead was a late scratch for Monday Night Football and maybe screwed a bunch of people in fantasy football. We'll talk about Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey, but there's plenty more to get to with this team. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. It is episode 11 of the A Look Inside series. Josh and Ryan joining as always.
Yo.
Gentlemen, it's the Niners.
It's just not 49ers talk without you shitting on Kyle Shanahan, Joe.
You know what? If there was ever a reason for me to jump to Joe's side, it was the mishandling of Christian McCaffrey last year. So
I mean,
you're not wrong on that one.
It took Kyle Shanahan a negative amount of time into the season to piss everybody off.
Yeah. Normally I'll fight with Joe about these coaches, but Kyle Shanahan forever on my shit list. And the fact that the 49ers did not get in trouble with how that was all handled is still disgusting as well.
Unbelievable.
Because Shanahan's the league's golden boy, you know? The
Is
Nepo
he?
baby. Yeah.
Wow. Golden Boy with 0 rings. That's crazy. Crazy. 0 rings in the 3 biggest Super Bowl blown leads of all time is the Golden Kid. Crazy. He's the head coach and the offensive coordinator, guys. And they were 6.
He's a play caller. There is technically an offensive coordinator this year.
Okay. Yes. And Andy Reid's not the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay.
That's why there's a difference between play caller and offensive coordinator.
And Bill Belichick wasn't the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots.
Well, he actually was. They didn't have a defensive coordinator.
Matt Patricia. What do you mean? They had a defensive coordinator.
The last couple of years that
no coordinator.
That Belichick was there was no actual defensive coordinator.
Gerard Mayo was calling the defense, though. He was the de facto defensive coordinator.
Coach.
Yeah.
But wasn't the actual defensive coordinator. That's what I'm getting at.
So
the last couple of years with San Francisco, there hasn't been an actual offensive coordinator. This year, there is.
Okay, so Kyle Shanahan's the offensive coordinator. And if you wanted to bet on this team, you can do that. Promo code WAF on Underdog. Free pick, first time deposit up to $1,000. And as we get into this, be sure to like, subscribe. We appreciate every single one of you. We're closing on 14, correct? 1,400?
1,400.
1,400. Projected starting offense, again, we use Underdog ADP. This is as of June 17th. And the reason we use Underdog is because it's the most up-to-date, most accurate currently in the month of June. So Brock Purdy is the quarterback one. The newly signed, newly extended. He doesn't have there's no Brock is his full name. I wish there was Brock might have been a shortened name.
Brockavius.
Brockward Purdy. He's QB 11. Christian McCaffrey, the RB1, also known as RB4. Isaac Guerendo, 46. Jordan James, that's a guy, RB 72.
Rookie out of Oregon.
He is. Yeah, he is. Okay. And the wide receivers currently on the depth chart are listed in backwards order of ADP.
Yeah.
So Ayuk is 46, Pearsall is 41, Jennings is 35, and then, yes, you guessed it, the wide receiver 4 is wide receiver 20. No. Demarcus Robinson is wide receiver 118.
Yeah, this is one of the most interesting situations of the drafters thinking they know better than the 49ers.
We do. Well, here's the thing. We know better than the 49ers, but we know Kyle Shanahan is dumb.
Gonna screw this whole thing up.
It's gonna screw it up. So we'll see what happens. And then George Kittle, of course, the tight end 1. He is the tight end 3. All right, before we get into everything, Josh, go for it. Thoughts, expectations on this bum team?
Yeah, I mean, every year that I sit down to do projections for the 49ers, they're honestly, for me, the easiest team to project. Kyle Shanahan is the most predictable play schemer in the NFL. Like, he features 2 wide receivers, a running back, and a tight end. That's it. It's literally funneled to those 4 positions. Anybody else is lucky to see 50 targets when it comes to the receiving game, right? We know how the running back situation is going to work. If there's one guy that's healthy, they're going to get all the touches. If not, they'll sprinkle it through. That's how we had years of Raheem Mostert's and the Jeff Wilson Jr.'s, those types of running backs that ultimately went other places. They bring in Christian McCaffrey. When he's healthy, he totes the rock. He gets hurt. Jordan Mason came in. He toted the rock. When Mason and CMC missed, Isaac Arendo toted the rock, right? So that's how this offense plays out. There's not going to be any one person that spikes with a 27, 28% target share. They're all going to be kind of right in that 20, maybe 23 at the high, probably like 16% at the low, but that's where they're all going to be bunched in, right? It's just ultimately going to be the pecking order is all determined by who's healthy, because we've seen George Kittle be the 4th option. We've seen him be the 3rd option, the 2nd and the 1st. We've seen Brandon Ayuk be the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. We've seen CMC and so on and so forth, right? So you're going into this season with uncertainty around Brandon Ayuk after tearing up his knee last year. Does he start the season in week 1? Does he not come in until week 4? Does he start the year on the PUP list, right? There's a lot of unknowns when it comes to him. Juwan Jennings, from what I heard, is dealing with a mandatory minicamp injury. Pearsall tweaked his hamstring, right? George Kittle's now 31 coming off of a contract extension. Christian McCaffrey, there was the word tendonitis thrown around at the end of last year with his Achilles, right? So there's a lot of unknowns. And when it comes to this wide receiver room, it's arguably the most ambiguous when it comes to pecking order in the entire NFL right now. You normally see this from running back rooms, not really from wide receiver rooms. So how the targets are going to shape out is going to be extremely interesting to me from a wide receiver perspective.
And just to build off of 2 of Josh's points, number 1, where you said he's super predictable, you're absolutely right. Until Christian McCaffrey goes down, because they stopped throwing to their running backs. Like,
That
literally
true,
full stop. It was over. And that's going to get into some of my issues with George Kittle later, but that was concerning. But then you also brought up the ambiguous wide receiver room. For a team that throws the ball so little, the ambiguity in this room is incredible. You have Brandon Ayuk, the diva pay me. You have Ricky Pearsall, a 1st-round pick. But then you have the coach saying they expect Juwan Jennings to be the wide receiver 1. And I'm like, as Josh pointed out, none of these guys are even going to see a 20% target share. So we're freaking out about who to draft. You're probably drafting all of them as your wide receiver 3, because this team is barely going to throw the ball 525 times. They're paying Brock Purdy to manage the game, plain and simple. So to all of Josh's points are true, but my goodness, it's so much easier to predict this offense when we know Christian McCaffrey is healthy, which we all knew until 7:59 on Monday Night Football last year.
Oh my God.
The
so
biggest
angry.
sticking point with this offense, it's built around Yak. They are a big play offense. They're going to strike down the field. Like, that's why Brock Purdy consistently averages over 8 yards per attempt throwing the football. Like, they're going to get up the field. But it's just absolutely amazes me that when somebody gets hurt, it's just next man up. Like, they don't really change the offense. They just expect that next man to fit right in like nothing happened.
Yeah, Debo had a defined role, and we alluded to this when Christian McCaffrey was brought in, that we thought Debo's role was going to go away. His
carries did diminish,
and it did. But then McCaffrey got hurt, and they would use him that way.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, with Debo gone, do we maybe see Christian McCaffrey take over the Debo role, and they use some of these other running backs as running backs while they're trying to manage his workload?
So before we get into the receiver room, Brian, the tight end, who seems to be the only constant as long as he stays healthy, George Kittle.
And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this is we're drafting George Kittle like there's never been health issues. We're drafting George Kittle like he's not getting up there in ages. My issue is, in my opinion, his position among the tight ends is closer to the tight end 4 than it is the tight end 2. but I don't feel like he's being drafted like that. I feel like you have to go into a draft saying, I'm taking George Kittle in the 4th round. Like, your draft plan has to be George Kittle. And I don't love that because 94 targets last year, tied for the second most in his last 5 years. He had those 200 target years back in 2018 and 2019. But we see 1,100 yards, which was the second most of his career. All of this without Christian McCaffrey. And then more importantly, the 8 touchdowns, which he's only ever scored more than 6 once before. Everything about George Kittle to me is screaming regression if everybody is healthy. And then there's the fact that he also has to stay healthy. So I get loving George Kittle, the tight end, but as the fantasy asset, we talked about this a lot on our tight end show. If I don't pay up for the first or second tight end, I'm certainly not paying up for George Kittle. The only place I'll have George Kittle is differentiation builds in my best ball lineups. I cannot buy into him right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of the narrative with Kittle right now is he's going to finish as a top 3 tight end because the key wide receivers are hurt, right? Like I just talked about. There's uncertainty with Ayuk and when he actually starts the season. Pearsall's already dealing with an injury. Jennings is kind of nicked up, whatever, right? Kittle then becomes the most reliable target at that point. But this offense, typically, when the wide receivers are healthy, it funnels through them, and then the RBs and the tight end become that 3rd, 4th piece. So, like you said, Ryan, only twice has this guy ever topped 100 targets.
Yeah.
So he's not a high volume
that was
tight end.
7 years ago.
He's always been an efficient tight end. He is consistently among the league leaders at tight end in yards per route run. As I mentioned, Shanahan gets down the field. This is what they do. They create yards after the catch. That the accuracy that when Purdy is throwing the football, he's leading them to go, right? It's not stop, catch behind me, and then go. It's you're threading it right there. And that's how this offense operates. And that's why Kittle is so good after the catch, because once he catches it, he's running, plain and simple. But he's also one of the best tackle breakers at the tight end position when it comes to receivers. So you're naturally getting all of that. But of all of the top 12 receiving options at tight end last year in the league, he ran the fewest routes. So then it becomes you're banking on him
hyper efficiency
and spike weeks. That's how he makes his living. There's very little consistency when it comes to George Kittle, but that's just the state of this offense. But I just don't know how you can draft him thinking that he's going to be the 1 or 2 unless you know for a fact that Brandon Ayuk is missing the first 6 weeks of this season. Plain and simple.
Well, where he sits currently is the first pick in the 5th round. So how we're going to do this quickly, because I'm going to do this with the receivers as well, is I'm going to take the bottom half of the 4th and the top half of the 5th, right? Because you're not, at this point, you're not drafting against the position. Like it's very, you can't play the would you rather tight end.
You're taking the best player available.
When is the next tight end going though, Joe?
One moment. I have to switch back to the tight ends. The next tight end would be going 6'6". That's Sam Laporta.
So a round and a half later.
A round and a half later.
Exactly what my problem is. So.
Yes. So currently Kittle's a 5'1". So I'm going to start at the 4'7". I just need you to tell me if you take Kittle over this guy so we can go quicker. I'm going to imagine all of these are no's. That's just my guess. Maybe 1 or 2 guys. Devonta Smith. Jamison Williams.
I'll take Kittle. I
was going to say I might take Kittle. Yeah.
And that's one of the guys. So yes, because Jamison Williams fell heavily in our mock draft. Rome Odunze.
I'll take Rome.
Odunze.
Zay Flowers.
I'll take the wide receiver 1 on a team.
I might lean Kittle there. And the only reason is simply because Zay Flowers is basically the wide receiver 20. That's it. There's nothing great about rostering Zay Flowers, plain and simple.
Jalen Hurts or George Kittle.
Boring. Oh, Hurts.
Yeah.
Hurts.
Burrow or Kittle.
Burrow.
Then
Kittle. I don't even draft quarterback early, and I'll take
exactly. Tet or George Kittle.
Tet or McMillan.
DK.
Mr. Metcalf.
Cortland Sutton.
Sutton.
Joe Mixon.
mildly more concerning now, but yes.
Yes.
I might lean Kittle there.
Chris Godwin.
I would take Godwin.
Yeah.
So that my point being is there's 2, maybe 3, and there's really 1, maybe 2 to 3.
I mean, you're exactly saying or proving what I was saying is you have to go in and being like, I'm taking George Kittle. Like that's how he is going in drafts right now.
Yes, and then at that point, then you're seeing Travion Henderson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, Chuba Hubbard, Chris Olave, Kenneth Walker. Like even then, you're seeing a little
Every one of those guys I would take over George Kittle.
So that's it's not Jalen Waddle, but like that's where
I didn't hear Waddle. You're absolutely right.
That's where it's like he's not going in a great spot. No. To Ryan's point. So
put him right next to Laporta, and it makes way more sense. 6, 7.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think with Kittle, it's just you fall in love with. If I'm going to take, I mean, he was the tight end 1 last year in points per game. I get that aspect of it, but with Kittle, it's like you're convincing yourself that you're a tight end early guy, and there's some level of positional advantage at that. And there's when you have a Bowers and a McBride, I just don't see the advantage, and honestly.
And let's go to the receiver side of things then. So obviously the camp battle for the number 1 in targets amongst the receivers. I think we probably roughly know where they're each going to run in terms of an X, a Z, and a Y, potentially. But between Ayuk, Pearsall, and Jennings, and Josh, you have Pearsall as the highlighted one.
Yeah, I went with Pearsall here for a couple of reasons. One, Jennings last year as the de facto wide receiver 1. Was anybody really excited to have him as their wide receiver 1?
If you
I mean, I'm just legitimately asking.
If you started him in that one game, that 52-point game or whatever it was, you were very excited. But after that, absolutely not.
I mean, he was the wide receiver 28 overall last year. And the wide receiver 24 overall, the wide receiver 28 in points per game. So, like, he wasn't even anything special. We've seen the wide receiver 1 in this San Francisco offense be a top 12 option, be a top 15 option on limited targets when you're looking at the grand scope of the guys that are finishing in the top 12, the top 15. He still couldn't even get 1,000 yards last year. So, like, he's not any sort of special talent. And you're comparing Jennings against 2 guys, Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall, who were first-round draft picks in their respective draft classes. Now, you can make the argument that maybe Pearsall didn't belong there, but I digress. The fact of the matter is he is one. He started slow last year, missed the first 6 games. Motherfucker was shot. All right, let's be honest here. We weren't going to expect anything great from him, and he still came back after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But this is what I find really interesting. From week 10 to the end of the season, Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings had the exact same number of top 24 finishes. And Pearsall put up 3 goose eggs.
Oh, so was it 0 or was it, how many was it?
Yeah, he had 3 goose eggs in that time and still had the same number of top 24 finishes as Juwan Jennings. Like, if that doesn't tell you that Juwan Jennings is nothing special, I don't know what will. So why not bet on more of the unknown when it comes to this ambiguous pecking order of wide receivers? Like, Pearsall's going to play all year. He might miss a few games here and there. Like, I get that. This is 2025 NFL. Everybody's missing games. Yep. That's just how things are going to go. If you want to just fade Brandon Ayuk because you don't want to risk him missing the first 6 games, to me, Pearsall is the better option when it comes to drafting for that exact reason. Because if you're saying that Juwan Jennings is a great value with where he's going at, I just said he finished as the wide receiver 28 last year.
He's not a good value.
I just want to jump in real quick here on Juwan Jennings because I found it very interesting where we talked about whether people started him. So his blow-up game was week 3. The 2 games before that, 7 catches total for barely over 100 yards. Then he gets quiet again until week 10 and 11. But the problem is the 3 games before that, he had a combined 7 catches. So nobody was starting him. Then he goes quiet yet again and has 8 total catches before his next 2 touchdown game. So the problem was you could never trust this guy. You had no reason to keep flexing him every week.
And in truth, the wide receiver 1 on the 49ers, you can trust every week. They're going to see targets. They're going to see production. It's not Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
So
it's just not.
So with what we currently know now, here's the craziest would you rather we have played to date. All of these San Francisco receivers are within 11 ADP spots of each other in terms of receivers. I am going to give you every single receiver from the 6th to the 8th round because that is where they fall.
Okay.
And I just want you, and if you don't say a word, that means you're taking the receiver I mentioned over any of the other 3 guys.
Okay.
We will start in the 8th round and work our way up to the 6th.
Okay.
So keep that in the back of your mind. Would you rather Darnell Mooney or any of the 49ers receivers? Darnell Mooney. Josh Downs. Let's assume Anthony Richardson's the quarterback.
I don't really think that's a safe assumption, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, if it's Anthony Richardson, I'll take any of the 49ers receivers.
If it's Daniel Jones,
I'll gamble on Downs.
Cooper Kupp or any of the 49ers receivers.
I would take Ayuk.
No, Kupp. Him, and then Ayuk is the next.
But you're also
Josh,
you're a stout Ayuk hater.
Yeah, I'm also an anti.
But here's the thing with where you're taking these guys. Like I probably again, you're taking them as your 3 or 4, right? I would be okay drafting Ayuk, and if he does end up on the PUP list, putting him in my IR spot.
Yeah,
like that's the other side of it because he's going to be the most impactful wide receiver here.
I'm going to swing on the guy that's been the wide receiver 1 who's also injured. So, anyways, Stephon Diggs
or last year. Diggs.
That's
easy.
Diggs easy. Luther Burden or any of the 49ers receivers.
I'll go with the 49ers. Luther Burden's about to be the exact same role as Rome Odunze last year.
Khalil Shakir.
Shakir.
Okay, now this is probably inflated because of the rookie value, but Matthew Golden and Mecca Egbuka.
I'll take 49ers receivers over both.
Same.
Yep. So that's the rookie inflation. Back to reality. Jacoby Myers. George Pickens.
Josh can't wait to talk George
Pickens
in another episode.
Then you get to Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Reed, or Niners.
Jaden Reed, it's not close.
Reed, yeah.
Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh. I'll probably gamble on Jeudy. I don't know if Josh will.
No, definitely not. Jerry Jeudy.
I would gamble on Jerry Jeudy over these 49ers receivers. I'm not lying to you. Calvin Ridley.
Oh, Ridley, easily.
Then you're up to Juwan Jennings. Then the 2 above him in the 6th round are Travis Hunter. Deebo Samuel.
Ooh. There's some issues with Deebo right now.
Rather the old 49er receiver or the current 49ers receivers. So my point being is, how many people did we take over all 3 of these guys?
Yeah, and then we all have
inflated.
So Josh, overall, do you have Pearsall as your highest rated 49ers receiver?
So as of right now, the way that I have everything statted, I do have Ayuk higher. But again, I don't know how many, if any, games Ayuk is going to miss.
Yeah.
But I'm going to project it as he is the one in this offense when he plays.
That's how I have it.
The same way that I'm kind of doing it with the Patriots, where I do think that Diggs probably misses the first couple of games to start that season. I've kind of scaled back how many actual targets I do give him, but he is the lead target guy on that offense, the way that I did my projections. It's kind of the same thing with Ayuk, but Pearsall is firmly my wide receiver 2 in this pecking order. Firmly. I have Juwan Jennings with barely 50 targets.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're way off because I have Pearsall and Jennings as the same targets, both around 80, and then I have Ayuk just over 100. So
if I'm gambling on a 49ers receiver, it's Pearsall. 1st round draft pick. That is.
I mean, you can't ignore the draft capital. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of my whole point. It's Juwan Jennings, when he was drafted, he was a 7th round pick. He still could not get on the field when Brandon Ayuk started not so great over his first 2 years in the league. So, like, why are we all of a sudden assuming that he's going to take over because he had a, quote, wide receiver 1 season when he wasn't really a true wide receiver 1?
You know it's bad if I'm telling people to ignore coach speak. So
that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Kyle, shit, did we not learn our lesson to ignore Kyle Shanahan's coach speak last year? Like,
yeah, Christian McCaffrey should be fine.
Yeah, right? No, fuck that.
I understand that I'm a Brandon Ayuk hater, but I just looked at his stats for the first time ever. You're telling me that 18 yards per reception comparative to 13 the previous season is not an outlier in his statistics in a year where he wanted a contract extension? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I literally just started this show by saying this offense is built around explosive plays.
Yeah.
That was the point of his breakout. It was they finally, Shanahan got a quarterback that could operate his offense. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a secret. He's consistently been a 13-yard reception guy. Like, not Pearsall nor Jennings can say that.
Mike Williams, 76 catches for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk, 75 for 1,300 and 7 touchdowns. Contract years. I will end my statement there. I will end my argument there because I called Mike Williams' contract year to a fucking T, and none of you can say I was wrong on that because I was perfect. And this is the same bullshit that Brandon Ayuk is pulling. Market. Best bets. This feels, again, this is all based on health. Plus 275 to have over 1,250 rushing yards for Christian McCaffrey. It feels free.
And that's really what it is. I mean, if he's healthy, he's getting this easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, it just needs to stay healthy.
So what's the number? 1,250?
1,250.
1,250.
I have him nowhere near that. I have them managing his workload. I have him at 906 rushing yards. And I'm projecting health. I just have them projecting. I am projecting them managing his workload.
Kyle Shanahan doesn't understand manage workload.
And that's the whole thing. Ryan, I'm with you. The way that I projected it, I only have him at 206 carries. Like, I have him kind of like
exact number I have.
So I've scaled him down quite a bit. But again, like, this
Who's
is
the
Kyle
coach?
Shanahan. I know that projection is off. Like, I still have him with over 1,500 total
Who's
yards.
the coach? That's my point.
Like, that's
Who's
really
the
what
coach?
it boils down to. Because, like, if CMC is healthy, honest to God, he's the RB1 in fantasy football. Like, let's be real here. He is.
It's not even a question.
Like, there's literally no sugarcoating that. But is he?
Hey, you know what?
If he legitimately has tendonitis, he might only play 5 games.
That's what I say. Tendonitis don't go away.
No.
Do you know when we're gonna find out? When we're gonna find out if he's healthy? September 7th
at 7
at 2:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 90 minutes before they're supposed to put in the official injury list for the game.
And they're gonna be like, oh, by the way, he had his left leg amputated in the offseason.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. He's in a wheelchair. He had neurological surgery. Like, he don't even know left from his right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle. Ryan, you have under 10.5 wins. Lock. -1.
I was tripping.
Lock.
That this was an option.
Can you bet that up to under 7.5 wins? Like, what is the?
There are sites.
I believe you can on DraftKings.
Yeah. So I went back to see kind of where this is rooted in, and obviously they won 6 games last year, or maybe 7. 6 or 7.
Of the century. They won 6.
And so they're giving them this like everybody's healthy bump, but I'm like, they didn't get better on defense. They didn't get better on the offensive line.
Like, they got worse on defense.
There's some issues with this team. I think they're probably a 6 or a 7 win team. So I was like, yeah, I'll take some free money.
Joe, on DraftKings, you can bet under 6.5 at +650.
Okay, I'm not that.
Jesus.
I'm not that crazy. I do think they're like 7-8. I do think they're good enough.
Under 8.5 is +255.
I take that any day of the week.
Plus money for them to win 8 or fewer games is amazing.
Smash.
So I went back and looked at their last 2 years, and obviously the years before 2024, they were a 11 win team and a 13 win team. But this is a team that just keeps dropping wins off of their win total, and I don't see anything about this team not one thing about this team tells me they're going to be markedly improved compared to where they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case that the coaching on defense got better, bringing Robert Zollo back, right? But they lost a lot of talent. That's what I'm saying. They lost a lot of talent. I mean, they spent some draft picks on defense, which they had to. I mean, at the end of the day, we knew this was coming. They were making a concerted effort to shed salary because they needed to pay their quarterback.
Yep.
And all of their money is invested on offense. It's the same thing that Philly's done. The difference is Philly has knocked out all of their draft picks. They're hitting home runs with their draft picks on defense. If San Francisco does that, like if Michael Williams ends up becoming like a big-time edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa, they'll have something to work with. But we've been saying on the show for how many years? Bosa's pretty overrated as a defensive end.
And it's going to take a year, more than likely.
Don't worry. They signed Trey Brown from Seattle, one of the worst cover corners in the NFL. That's statistics. That's not even opinionated. That is an actual fact that Trey Brown's one of the worst nickel backs and defensive backs in the NFL. On that note, for my best bet, the under on Fred Warner's tackles. He had a great season last year. That normally means he's not going to have that good of a season the next, and he'll probably get injured. I'm not betting on an injury, but when Fred Warner's had a career year, the next year he takes a step back and normally misses a few games. He didn't miss anything last year. Dude was he played through like a broken sternum or something like that. He was Iron Man for the 49ers. That's not going to happen this year. So I take the under on his
Joe, his tackle numbers have been pretty consistent year over year.
Yes.
Combined tackles 124, 118, 125, 137, 130, 132, 131.
You listed a lot of numbers for a lot of years in a linebacker. Was he 30 now?
He'll be playing next year at 29. This year at 29.
God, he came in young. Okay.
Yeah.
Came in at 22, yeah.
I don't like the age is another bit. That's why I do think he misses a chunk of games.
Yeah.
With that, he was hero ball last year.
Yeah, it's all they had.
Yeah,
I mean, he's never missed a game yet. So,
what do you mean he's never missed it?
He's never missed a game, dude. Literally never missed a game.
I had Fred Warner in fantasy football, and I know the man missed a game because it was out on his fucking tech. All right, CBS.
I'm literally looking at it.
CBS
because they went to the 17-game schedule in. Was it 2021?
I don't know.
Yeah, so he's missed one game.
Okay, so then he missed one game in 2021. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I know I had to bench him with an out tag. Okay, he missed one game. Like, damn.
Yeah, that's literally the only year he's ever missed a game. It's been 16, 16, 16, 16,
and plus
17, 17, 17.
I'm not trying to like bust Joe's balls here, but that was also the year where they like dominated their division. That might have just been a healthy scratch week 18 game.
All I know is I had to sit him when I was angry about it. That's all I know is I had to sit him when I was angry about it. So
I can find out really quick.
I'm still taking.
That was week 13.
Okay, I remember that one. Joe was real. Joe was fighting for a playoff spot.
That was real. I was already in the playoffs by that point. Don't you? Let's get out of here. Here's an IDP league. I'm always in the playoffs. Gentlemen, Dallas Cowboys next week.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, the talk of June for the show Get Up on ESPN. Because who cares about a blockbuster MLB trade or Game 5 of the NBA Finals or, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals? You know what matters? What does this mean for Dak Prescott's legacy in the dynasty of the Dallas Cowboys? And that's not a joke. That was an actual topic.
Wow. That's insane.
No, that was an actual topic. June 13th on Get Up.
And we're talking about Dak Prescott's legacy.
Dak Prescott's legacy.
Good Lord.
It is June.
Yeah. Maybe win a playoff game.
There's two major sports championships happening. And we're talking about fucking Dak Prescott. Sure. You know what we're going to do in the next episode?
Talk about Dak Prescott.
But for good reason. See us on the next one. Dallas Cowboys. Always a fun time. Always a good time to make fun of the Cowboys. Maybe that's why they do it all the time. Because it's just always fun to make fun of the Cowboys. You can catch the article for Christian McCaffrey by Ryan up on the website, clubfantasyfl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. We will see you on the next one.